Hello, and welcome to the October 2023 installment of LouElla's Wine Explorers Club. My name is Noel Scherer. I am the Director of Retail and E-commerce here at LouElla. And as always, I want to thank you for supporting our small business and for going on this vinous adventure with us. I really hope you're enjoying it. It's still pretty warm here in North Carolina, but fall is just around the corner. So to get in the mood for some chillier weather, I'm coming to you from the cold confines of our cellar here at the shop. I've got my hoodie on to keep me warm, so let's launch into this month's lineup of some great wines for fall and beyond. Your first wine this month comes from the Campania region of Italy. It is the Benito Ferrara 2022 Greco di Tufo Vigna Cicogna. I find the white wines from the Campania region some of the most interesting wines coming out of Italy. There's something about the volcanic soil there that allows white varieties to be both sort of ripe and expressive and fruit forward, but also mineral, structured, and complex. This is an old family estate. It was originally founded in the region back in the late 1880s when Nunziante Ferrara planted vines just outside of Naples in San Paolo Bel Sito, just to make some wine for himself and his family. He shortly thereafter began selling the wine locally by bringing it by donkey to various restaurants and retailers in the area. But it wasn't until 1991 when his grandson Benito really started taking quality winemaking seriously, and that is when the modern Benito Ferrara label was born. This is an estate whose wines I've been following for a very long time and have found them to be some of the most delicious, expressive white wines coming out of Campania. Now the fourth generation of winemakers in the family, Gabriella, is at the helm. They work their vineyards completely organically. Production is very, very small here. They only have about 12.5 total hectare under vine. High elevation here in the hills around Campania, around Naples, and again, like I said, clay and volcanic soils. The vines here in this particular vineyard, the Vigna Cicogna, range from 15 to 60 years old. The wine is fermented and aged in stainless steel for 7 months, and only about 750 cases of this are made annually. This is a great fall white. It's full-bodied without being overly unctuous or sweet. It's got beautiful stone fruit, a little bit of a honeyed note, lots of floral notes on the nose. It's a great wine to have as an aperitif or with just about any kind of food I can imagine. The normal price on the shelf here would be $33. As club members, you're getting it for $26.40 this month. And as always, if you love it and you want to get some more, let me know as soon as possible. There's not a lot available, but I can get some more. This next wine is one that I was really excited to try and ultimately offer to you this month. This is the 2019 Touraine Co from winemaker Valerie Forgue. So there's a little bit of a backstory to this as to why I was so excited to try this wine. One of my favorite estates of all time is an estate called Clos Roche Blanche, which was located in this same region of the Loire Valley in France, Touraine. Clos Roche Blanche was the longtime labor of love of a couple, Catherine Roussel and Didier Barouillet, who were really genius winemakers and pioneers of natural wine growing and making in the Loire Valley. Their wines were some of my favorite that I have got to enjoy over the years. They did retire several years back, and unfortunately since then Catherine passed away, so their wines are no longer available. But back in 1991, Valerie Forgue and her husband purchased the Domaine de la Mécanière, a property that was right next door to the Clos Roche Blanche. They were a young couple back then, didn't know a lot about winemaking, had a lot of years of struggling, but eventually Didier sort of took Valerie under his wing and began to teach her how to convert her vineyards over to the same organic and biodynamic practices they used at Clos Roche Blanche. So in a way, Valerie is sort of inherited the mantle of the way that the Clos Roche Blanche wines were made. This wine is a Co, C-O-T. Now, Co is the name that is used for the Malbec grape in the Loire Valley, but this is a Malbec very different than those that you may have had from, say, Argentina, where those wines are sort of big, heavy, and dark, very, very tannic. The expression of Malbec here in the central Loire, where it's grown in sandy, clay, and silica soils, is much brighter, juicier, more purple floral notes to it. Really a very, very charming style of Malbec. These vines here are about 40 years old on average. And again, everything Valerie does now since 2016 is completely biodynamic. Everything's harvested by hand, natural yeast fermentation, and only a tiny bit of sulfur used during the winemaking process. This wine is delightful. It's a great chillable red. So as we transition from warmer into cooler weather, sometimes it's still going to be a little bit warm. You still want a red that you could chill down a bit. This is perfect for that. So this is the 2019 Valerie Forgue Touraine Co. Normally $30. For you Wine Club members this month, $24. I really hope you enjoy it. I love this wine. Our next wine comes to us from the Itata region of southern Chile. It is the 2022 Viñeteros Bravos Volcánico País. This is made by a winemaker named Leonardo Arazzo. He's a young winemaker, studied winemaking at the University of Chile, but after graduating, decided to take on touring the world to study techniques of organic wine growing and wine production. He then returned to his native Chile to begin this project. Now, Itata, I think, is a very interesting and emerging region of Chile. It is one of, if not the most southern of Chile's wine growing regions. Now, we normally think of southern regions as being warmer, but because Chile is in the southern hemisphere, the further you're getting away from the equator, going south, the cooler the climate gets. Plus, it is very high elevation in Itata. So we normally think of Chilean wines as being fairly ripe and fruit forward, but the wines grown in this region are a lot more savory, bright, and balanced. This is made with a local variety, sort of a local variety, called País. País was brought to Chile back in the 16th century by Spanish conquistadors who, in order to have the wines they enjoyed back at home in Chile, brought vine cuttings and planted them here in this volcanic soil of the Itata region. Again, volcanic soil, you'll hear me talking about it again and again, along with limestone, I think are really the two perhaps greatest terroirs for wine growing. This wine comes from completely dry farmed vineyards as well, which is unusual in Chile, and Leandro works with local organic producers. He doesn't own all of these vineyards, but works with a selection of farmers that work biodynamically and organically. This is a really interesting, savory, mid-weight red. Again, kind of perfect for the transition between warm weather and cool weather. If you got a chilly night, you're having some kind of rustic, meaty dish, this will be perfect with it. Or if it's warm and you're grilling some food outside, this is light enough on its feet to pair very, very well with a wide variety of foods. Normal price on this is $27. It's $21.60 this month for you wine explorers. I hope you enjoy it. If you like it and want to get some more, just let me know and I'll bring some more in for you. Cheers. Your next wine this month is the 2021 Bedrock Wine Company Old Vines California Zinfandel. Now, those of you who know my typical taste in wine may be surprised that I've included a California Zin in the selection, as those are wines that tend to be a little bit heavy, overly fruited, and very high in alcohol, which make them often not great food pairing wines, and I'm all about wines that pair great with food. But this is a really fantastic and balanced Zinfandel, and it really captures the crunchy, dark, brambly fruit that, in a well-balanced Zinfandel, are really, really pleasurable flavors. Bedrock Wine Company is a really cool project. It is Morgan Twain Peterson is the winemaker. He's the son of a winemaker named Joel Peterson, which some of you may remember from a brand called Ravenswood Zinfandel. Back in the 90s, into the early aughts, Ravenswood was a hugely successful brand. Eventually it kind of went into kind of overproduction, became a little bit too commercial, and Joel Peterson eventually sold the brand name to a large conglomerate, and he's actually just started making some of his own wines again. But his son Morgan went in a different direction almost immediately. He didn't study winemaking in college. Instead, I believe he studied social science or philosophy at Vassar College in New York, and started working in some of the kind of geekier wine stores around New York City in the early aughts. Really got the bug for more natural, terroir-driven winemaking. And that's what Bedrock has really been about. This comes from multiple sources from around California, but most of the juice here comes from the Teldeschi Ranch, about 20% of the juice here. And that is one of the really great sources of old vines Zin in California. As with other California wines, they don't have to list all the different varieties here, but I will say that there is some Carignan in Cinsault in this blend as well, which additionally gives it balance. It isn't all Zinfandel, so there's some earthier, brighter, juicier notes as well. This is normally $33 on the shelf. For Wine Explorers this month, it's $26.40, and I hope you enjoy it. The next two wines will be included in your set this month if you are a Wine Explorer at the $150 monthly membership level. But if you're a $100 Wine Explorer and you want to get a bottle of one of these, no problem, just let me know and we'll get that arranged for you. This next wine comes from one of the most eccentric and interesting winemakers I've had the pleasure of meeting over the years. This is Giampaolo Tabarini's Umbria Bianco Ad Armando 2020. Giampaolo is the fourth generation of winemaker in his family, working organic vineyards in Italy's Umbria region. Umbria is the region that is right to the south of Tuscany. Giampaolo is a really fun guy, very eccentric, lots and lots of energy. He actually does come and visits the North Carolina market periodically, and years back, I had the pleasure of doing a wine dinner with him at Gocciolina, and well, without going into details, it was a real party. He's a high energy and super interesting guy. This is made from 100% Trebbiano Spoletino grape. Now, Trebbiano is a grape that grows very widely across Italy, and quite frankly is the source of a lot of fairly indifferent white wine. But the specific strain of it that grows in Umbria, the Trebbiano Spoletino, is a much more concentrated, complex, and interesting grape. And if you talk to Giampaolo about this wine, he will go to great pains to make sure you understand that this wine is not just regular old Trebbiano, but it is Trebbiano Spoletino. Now, this is not a small white wine. It comes in at about 13.5% alcohol. It's rich, it's concentrated, it's got almost an unctuous texture of a dessert wine, although it is not sweet. But it does have a lot of melon and tropical fruit components. It's planted to very silty clay soils. These vines were planted in 2006, and this comes from a particular vineyard site called Ad Armando, named after Giampaolo's grandfather. There's only about 800 cases made of this annually. Very little of it comes to North Carolina every year, so I was anxious to snag some of it for you in the wine club this month. It spends 12 months in stainless steel and then an additional 6 months aging in bottle. So this is a great wine to have, even though it's very big and full-bodied, almost to have as an aperitif or just a glass of white to have before dinner that you just sort of almost enjoy as a course onto its own. But if you're gonna have something with, let's say, a pasta in a cream sauce or a very buttery sauce, this would go very well with it also. Regular price on this is $35. This month for Wine Explorers at the $150 level, it is $28. Cheers. Our last wine this month comes to us from superstar Portuguese winemaker Luís Seabra. This is his 2020 Xisto Ilimitado Tinto. This is a wine from Portugal's Douro region, where Luís is based and makes most of his wines. Now, the Douro region is famous for Portugal's port wines, big fortified wines, that range from dry to sweet. But the history of port making doesn't really include the type of granular drilling down into terroir and vineyard sites the way, say, winemaking in Burgundy developed over centuries. What really has separated Louis and his winemaking is his very, very intricate study of the different microclimates and micro-terroirs of the Douro. So his project has been to create a series of crus sort of paralleling the thinking of the way they divide up vineyards into little tiny parcels in Burgundy to reflect the differences in their soils there. This Schisto Illimitado comes from schistic soils scattered across the Douro, so it isn't all from one continuous vineyard. But this is the way Louis works. He farms these little different parcels, works with farmers that have these different parcels, and then constructs these blends. This is a blend of several different Portuguese native varieties. I can never remember them, so I'm going to be checking my notes here. We have 30% Touriga Franca, 20% Tinto Amarela, 20% Tinto Roriz, 10% Rufete, 10% Tita Barroca. There's 5% Malvasia in here, and then 5% Donzolino Tinto. So lots of different grapes that you probably have not heard of, some of which I have not heard of. This all comes from sustainably and organic vineyards planted anywhere from 1960 to 1980 at about 400 to 600 meters above sea level. So great elevation, cooler nights. We're talking about a much more balanced style of red wine than most people associate with wines from the Douro. This is a super complex and interesting wine. I would recommend drinking a bottle and then maybe getting some more and aging it, because even though it's not too big in structure to drink now, I think this wine has a long life ahead of it where it's going to develop into more interesting mineral and terroir-driven flavors. Regular retail price on this is $30, but this month it is $24 for Wine Club members. Okay, that's it for October's wines. As always, if there's anything you really enjoyed and want to get more of, send me an email at noel@LouEllaDurham.com, and as long as there's some more available, I will get you some. All right, enjoy the wines, folks. Thanks. Talk to you soon.